My name's Rudnick, and I'm your host and trainer today. And before I introduce myself and our company further, I want to just talk real quickly with you about some webinar rules that we have. Some of you are joining us for the first time. Welcome. It's exciting to have you with us. We have representations of several industries across the U.S. and Canada, from Saskatchewan to Washington, D.C., to Florida, to Bend, Oregon. And we're excited to have all of you here with us. I want to talk about some of our rules that will make our whole experience much better. And what I'd first like to ask you to do is we're going to have a double gap here. Put us on hold, or do not put us on hold, rather. Also, put us on mute. I've muted everyone coming in. We're going to have some good dialogue time at the end. This webinar training time will probably take about an hour to an hour and 10 minutes. There are several of you here who will probably have some questions regarding your DISC assessment, and so we want you to be able to have access to that. But please put your phone on mute. Don't put us on hold. We want you to utilize the chat feature a few more times than we have in the past as well. Next session we'll probably have some more polling, but we just want some interaction there. I'll be taking a lot of information, or giving you a lot of information, so we'll want you to take notes. Okay, if you're enjoying and you're focused, please eliminate any background or distraction noise as well. So at the end, when you unmute yourself, if you want to participate, there won't be any distractions for us as well, but mostly for your sake. We want to make sure that you're able to focus on this time. What we're talking about is very crucial, very important, not only for your personal business, but just your personal growth as well. And we want to make sure that this is absolutely maximized time. So here's some of the material that you should have in front of you. We'd like you to have a notepad, some way to take a lot of notes. This is the best way for you to retain and review and then hopefully implement as well. It's important you have your DISC behavior assessment with you. If you're able to print it, if you haven't printed it, it's not in front of you, if you can print it without having to leave the webinar, that's great. You also should have received a selling tips note page that was emailed to you by Anita. It's a blank page. I'll show you here what that looks like, so you have that in front of you. So it should look like this, the selling tips note page. You need that. So your DISC assessment, selling tips note page, because you'll be filling in the blanks on this, and then be ready to take a lot of notes, and we'll be ready to go. All right. Quickly, I want to introduce myself. Again, some of you are new and joining us. My name is Rich Rudnick, and I'm the founder and CEO of Smart Sales Solutions. We started the company a little over 8 years ago. My background is a 29-year experience in a variety of sales management, sales capacity arenas. I'm a certified behavior analyst, and that gives me the right to these assessments and also to train and teach on them. My wife and I will be celebrating our 25th anniversary coming up in March, and we are not taking our children with us. Our company, Smart Sales Solutions, I'm very proud of the people that have gathered to come and help serve you. The company's been in existence since June of 2004. We serve clients in both the U.S. and Canada, have over 500 clients served, and serve multiple industries. And this really gives us an edge. We understand sales, we understand business, and we come and help our clients and meet them right where they're at. And on our call today is a representation of probably at least 7 or 8 different industries. So we're excited to have you all on the call. We serve in 3 areas: coaching, we do one-on-one and group coaching, we do training, live training, and what you're here attending is a webinar, and also also we provide consultation or consulting services. Let's talk about our agenda today. This is a two-part series. See, Behavior Styles Part 1. You need to attend next week also to get the full benefit of what we're talking about. I normally teach this live in one 3-hour segment, but webinar formats are best in 90 minutes, so I've broken this up. Again, this portion that we'll be talking about will take a little more than an hour. It'll take about an hour, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, so that'll give us plenty of time to dialogue afterwards. And I want you to participate with us. Our agenda today is mainly focused on you and understanding your DISC behavior assessment. That's why it's very important to have your DISC behavior assessment in front of you. So we'll basically debrief the DISC. I'll bring a DISC sample up to show you maybe on what page that we're referring to make sure everyone's on the same page. Again, if you have questions along the way, you can utilize the chat feature. I'll have you check in with me from time to time to make sure that we're tracking here with the chat, but that's also available for you to use as a device way to bring questions forward to me and save them certainly for the end. We're going to mainly debrief the DISC today so you understand it. We'll talk about blending your behavior. Next week, we'll pick up where we left off, go deeper into the concepts of behavior selling and blending and really identifying your prospects. And we'll also have some role-playing time next week, which I think you'll find very, very beneficial to your business. The whole key is for you to come now and apply this to your industry, your practice. I want to talk for a moment about the behavior assessment and what DISC means. DISC is actually an acronym for the 4 basic behaviors that we come under, up to 3 of them, and I'll explain that as we go. The D stands for dominant, and you might want to write down dominants are extrovert, task-oriented individuals. And get into more depth on what dominant is. They're leaders, managers, they're movers and shakers, typically. The I stands for influencers. These are extrovert, relationship-oriented individuals. Influencers are very optimistic. You see the 2 very enthusiastic thumbs up. We then have steady, which is the S in the acronym. Steadies are introvert, relationship-oriented people. They're very patient, very loyal, non-emotional. And you can see that picture kind of shows a very non-emotional individual. And C stands for compliant. Compliance are introvert, task-oriented individuals. Compliance are more about projects. We'll get into each one of these behaviors in a bit. Just a little bit about the DISC history. DISC is the most widely used assessment internationally for hiring, for training, for selling, and we also help our clients to hire the right people. Now, they're not only salespeople, but in positions as well. This is a behavior assessment. This is not a personality test. This has been in the hands of dozens of PhDs. This is not meant to capture you at 100%. You may have read your assessment and thought you agreed with most items, but maybe not not everything. An assessment can capture you at 100%. It's meant to capture you at about 70 to 90, and I'm going to ask that you reply back in a few minutes based on the first couple of pages to make sure that you feel that this assessment captures you at least 70 to 90%. And we can have further conversation about certain characteristics if you don't agree with that. And I'm going to give you an exercise to go through here in a moment that you can swing back and ask me questions at the end if you like. Very powerful assessment. In this portion today on your DISC assessment, we will begin here on your pages the characteristics that you have. All of you attending this have taken a DISC same version assessment. We'll talk about the checklist for communicating. Perception. How do you perceive yourself, but more importantly, how do others perceive you under various levels of stress? Okay? I'll understand your descriptor page. I want you to mark it up. I'll be writing on the screen here as well. We'll dig in a bit on the keys to motivating and managing, whether you're on the management side or you're on the, say, the employee or the staff side, how you would utilize that. And then I'll do the inside graph and wheel. And then we'll dig into some blending after that. So we got quite a bit to do here. We'll move fairly quickly, so I want you to take some notes. Try to bring the DISC assessment page up as necessary. All of you to turn in your DISC assessment to the first 2 to 3 pages, which say sales characteristics. I'll bring a sample assessment up to you so that you can do this here. Let me get this up here, and you should see it look like this. It's page 2 and 3, sales characteristics. What's really important for you to do on this page is to read through this and page 3, is understand as you read through what is that you absolutely agree with. What read your mail when you read through these statements? Like for this sample, Linda maintains a high trust level. If you're reading this and you're saying, oh man, or on your first lines or whatever lines in your assessment, this nails me. I want you to just highlight, underline that statement, circle it. Any of the statements that absolutely nail you, I want you to identify. I want you to go through here, and there's anything that you absolutely disagree with, I want to mark that. So maybe you're reading through this, and you may see excessive humor may cause her to ramble and not provide sufficient time for the presentation. You may say, oh, that's absolutely not me. I will mark that as well. If you have questions about any of that, we can open up the conversation line at the end. I have everyone's graph and wheel, so I understand where you sit. Even if I don't have the printed page on everyone, I can get it. But for this, I don't have everyone's full assessment. But I can help you to understand what may be happening there based on your graph, which is in the lower right side here. I can explain what that means. So save that thought. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take about 30 seconds or a minute to just roll through. Hopefully you've read your assessment. Try to identify that you what you absolutely agree with, if there's anything you disagree with, and then you come to the end of reading that. I want you to, in chat feature, identify whether you agree 70-90%. If you feel that you have 70 to 90% read, just mark in there, yes, 70 to 90%. And when it looks like I have most of you reporting, I'll move on. So I'm not going to hold too long. Just give you a chance to go through about 30 seconds to roll through, and then give me a chat thumbs up that you have that your agreement that this hits you about 70 to 90%. Okay, it looks like I've heard from a good portion of you. Go ahead, the rest of you, if there's any concern about any area of the assessment, let's bring it up at the end of the call. We'll take definite time for that. I think we need to come to the standing is that this assessment is very accurate. 70 to 90% is a good reading, and there's a number of things that we can pull from that. So good. Thank you all for those who commented on that. Let's continue on here. I want you to move on to checklists for communicating. Now, some of the clients that are on, we've done this before. Thanks, Devin, for letting me know that you're on and it looks great. Glad to see that. Let's go to checklist for communicating. So in your disc, that's roughly pages 5 and 6. And what I want you to do there is we're going to look at those two pages very carefully. Here's something that we have to understand. Whether an organization or in a relationship, how the boat floats or the ship sinks is dependent upon communication. And I will tell you that most communication problems are behavioral. In other words, and by the time we're done with this portion of our webinar, you have an understanding that how we're wired behaviorally, how we communicate, how we sell, how we make decisions, and tend to want to communicate to people, motivate, to sell, to train people the way we want to be communicated, sold, and trained. And here's something that you can write down, which is very important. It's not about us. It's about our prospects or the people that are in front of us that we're trying to communicate or sell to. So the goal for today is to help you gain understanding of yourself so that you can be putting greater emphasis on the person that you're in front of so you can learn how to communicate better to them, help them buy their way. Communication and sales go through the roof when we gain this understanding. This is how powerful what we're talking about is. I could have a whole week seminar on all of this stuff, but we have to get the summation out in bite-sized portions, and those who want to learn more, we take them through. On the checklist for communication, I'm going to go back into that DISC assessment sample. What I want you to do is I want to pull up for you the sample disc. Actually, I'm just going to come back here, go to checklist for communicating page, and I'll bring it back up here. Give me just one moment. And here we go. We got it up here. I'm going to pause, and you hopefully be seeing this. Your DISC assessment page, checklist for communicating, do's and don'ts, 5 and 6. Here we go. What I want you to do here is understand how people should communicate with you. This is a great opportunity for you to share with others. So what I want you to do on this page is understand the top 3 areas are the best ways for people to communicate with you off of your list. Rank in order. So maybe look at this one and you pick this is one, and you pick this as another, and provide implementing ideas for implementing action is one for you. Then you need to rank that. And on the next page, which are the don'ts for communicating, you do the same thing. Now, clients, you should have this already done. That one has the don'ts for communicating. So what I want you to do on the don'ts is take some time to understand that as well. Again, I'm not going to take a lot of time on this. I'm going to take about 3 seconds to a minute. Give me a thumbs up on the chat that you've identified at least your top 3 do's for communicating. You can put a little dog flag to get through the don'ts. If you've already done the do for communicating, clients, go through and hit on the don'ts right now. This would be a good time to do that. So I'm already seeing David's got his 3 up. The others just start rolling through, and when you're done, we'll move on to the next step. It's very important for you to understand this. Just take a minute now. We've got enough time. We'll come back. Excellent. For the rest of you, if you're still working on that, just take that as one of your action plans to finish off. Identify the top 3 do's, top 3 don'ts. And here's a great little exercise. If you're communication-wise with someone, this is a great place to start. Managers, I've got some managers on the call. We need to have all of your direct reports having a DISC assessment where you're understanding their communication do's and don'ts. We'll get into the motivation and managing steps later. Let's get that in place. Let's move on here. I want to move a couple of pages forward to the perception page. We're going to come back to tips, so hang with me. But I want to go to the perception page. And this perception page, on roughly page 9, I have a breakdown which I'll bring to you here in just a moment. It's really important for us to understand ourselves in the communication do's and don'ts, but here's what's really important. We need to understand ourselves and then understand how others may perceive us under levels of stress. This is very important. For almost everyone on this call, you are in a performance environment. And what that means is you have to perform. If selling, this isn't happening, and you're not getting paid. So on a good day, there's a moderate level of stress that you're going through each day, and we all deal with stress differently. And again, this is behaviorally related. Just we need to understand the best ways to communicate with ourselves and the people around us. We need to understand ourselves under stress. So what I want you to do first, now this is a sample. Some of you may have similar language to this. Not everyone. Everyone's different. What I want you to do up here is under self-perception, just focus there first. You have a name there. You ask yourself, do you see yourself or perceive yourself in those ways? Now, I'm not going to do the chat because almost all of you will say, yes, oh, I see myself in one of these ways. And that's actually pretty flattering descriptors, and rightly so. These are the positive aspects of your perception of yourself. And we tend to look at ourselves internally in the most positive light. And it doesn't mean those characteristics aren't true. They are. Us at our best with stress. It's very important to understand. So I'm sure that most of you can agree that you see yourself in one or two of those ways at least. Okay. Now, let's move down to others' perception. What's most important? And back in sales, it doesn't matter how we want the process to go. It doesn't matter how we want to communicate or motivate to someone. What matters is how the person that we're in front of wants to be communicated and so forth. What's important is how do others perceive us under various levels of stress. We all undergo various stress levels. So under moderate pressure, stress, you may be seen in one of these ways. Again, this is a sample. Your page, it's page 9. Now, you may or may not agree with all of these. By the way, I recommend that each have someone that knows you very well, that loves you, and would give honest feedback. If you're having a hard time seeing any of these perceptions, that you have somebody speak into your life to see if they see that in you. Because very often, remember, we have blinders on when it comes to ourselves. We're seeing ourselves in our very best light. Under moderate pressure, I'm going to suggest that is any day for any on this call. I have a list. Anyone on this call, I know almost all of you personally. There's a few new folks that I haven't met, but that you're in kind of a sales-related environment. Let's talk about under extreme pressure. Under extreme pressure, let's say we have a sale that fails. Maybe we have some extreme personal stress that's serious. Not quite enough to take us out of our day of work, but very, very serious. I think you get the point. And let's say, look back to the business side, and you just lost a sale, or you got that bad news, and waiting for you outside your door is your next prospect who is your opposite behavior. And we're going to be learning about who your behavior is and opposite behaviors in a moment. And you're under a stress environment, and you're having to go into the arena. If your pressure is high to perform to close that sale, you miss some steps, get emotion involved, and lose the next sale. This is why, for all of you, you need to have a little internal check and balance on what do you do in those situations. At the situation, so that you're able to make adjustments and focus on them. We need to put barriers up. You see what happens too often, and if you've attended my Leveraging Time webinar, you heard me say that too often business creeps into personal life, and personal life creeps into business. Or in business, we're not in the moment. It's very important for all of us to learn how to be in the moment with our prospects and our clients, so that we're focusing on their need, their behavior, their pace, how they make decisions and buy products versus our problems, our issues, the stress that's rolling through our mind. So put these barriers up for yourself, and this will be very, very effective. Let's move on to your descriptor page, which is page 10. For most of you, some of you it may be page 11. And I'll be bringing this up here, and I want to remind you, and we're going to be marking on our page here, on the descriptors of our behavior, okay? So, first of all, D stands for dominant. Dominants are extrovert, task-oriented individuals. I stands for influencer. They are relationship-oriented extroverts. Steadies are introvert relationship people, and clients are introvert, task-oriented individuals. You should look like this on the descriptor page 10. Clients, you have this marked out. Let's make sure you have that in place. Bear this. I'm going to mark here on the page and see how that goes. All right. Let's see if I can get on there. Let me see if I can make this work here. Go ahead and grab that. So we'll go with it. So first thing I want you to do is I want you to draw a line. Oh, it's going to be messy, folks. Just bear with me. Now you know what Anita has to put up with, right? Every day. Can't draw a straight line. Right down the middle. You can draw a straight line. That's all the way to the bottom, by the way. All right. A right side, left side now on your page. Now, you see where you have the shading, either high or low. I want you to draw a line horizontally. Better this, okay? Don't grab me on this. You can write on here 50% or energy line. I shouldn't even do this, right? This is kind of embarrassing. That's all right. I don't care. 50%. You can write the 50% energy line, okay? If you score above this line, you're considered high in that behavior. If you score below the energy line, you're considered low in that behavior. In other words, you can be high or low in either behavior. Okay. A paragraph on the top of your page, right under the paragraph, but over dominance and influencing, I want you to type the word extroverts. I'm just going to go EXT. Okay, you get the gist, right? extroverts, and over steady compliance. I want you to write the word introverts. Remember I said that dominants and influencers are extroverts. Steady compliance are introverts. Now, right over the word dominant, I want you to write the word task. Dominants are extrovert, task-oriented individuals. Okay? Influencers are relationship-oriented extroverts. Okay? Expert, dominant, and influencers, task, relationship. The steady is relationship-oriented. But they're about people. It's very important to understand this about yourself so that you start to understand the behavior of people you're doing business with. For hiring, this is so crucial. It's important for selling. There's so many applications. It's important to know who to spend the rest of your life with as well. Oops, I did the wrong thing here. Let's see here. I think of this. Let's scratch that out. Okay, let's go back to here. All right. Compliance are task-oriented. That's a little fatter. Task-oriented introverts. All right. Got extrovert, introvert, task, relationship, and task. Now, emotion factors that everyone has. This is really important to understand your emotion factors. Now, if you score very high or very low in a particular behavior, these emotion factors are more prominent. If you're kind of in the center, kind of like this steady, he's kind of in the middle there, you're more balanced in that particular motion. Like this are more extreme, okay? So, the emotion factor of dominant is short fuse, high anger. I'll just put A for anger. What that means is the higher the dominant, the greater likelihood that that person will have a short fuse and they can get angry quickly. They also get over it quickly. Feel good when they're done and they move on. They just had to let some steam off. Again, if you're a very high dominant and you don't feel that's the case with you, what's probably happened, one of two things. You've either mellowed or you've learned how to control that anger, or you're thinking too much of yourself and you need to have somebody else ask or share feedback with you and let them give that to you. The low dominant has a long fuse, short anger. So just long fuse, all right? Now, everything in its extreme problem, that there's issue with that. And what I mean is somebody who holds it in, volcanic eruption, that's not good either. So in all of these areas, it's important to understand the emotions that drive you. Put some checks in there. If you get angry quickly, let's work to curb that, because that can create some problems. If it's forever to let what you really feel, and then you end up exploding all over the place, that's not good either. So if you're a low dominant, I think more steam off. If you're very high dominant, let less steam off. And if you're kind of in the middle, you're probably balanced in that behavior. Let's go up to the influencer. The influencer, the emotion factor is optimism. I'm just write O for optimism. The higher the I, there's the optimism. Okay. Point of Pollyanna. A lot of you on this call have some high influencer. If you're in sales, that can be a really great behavior characteristic. However, everything in its extreme can have its challenges. We can be Pollyanna and overly optimistic over our clients. That's the first challenge that happens in the sales process. We need to understand that about ourselves. If you're a low influencer, your emotion factor is pessimism. I'm writing a P down there, okay? Pessimism. That's not good for sales either. Um, if you're, again, in the middle, you're probably more of a realist. See, the emotion factor of a steady is non-emotion. What do you mean by that? Well, we'll come to John. John's a high steady and say, John, how are you doing today? And John says, great. Well, that didn't sound too exciting, did it? It may come to him the next day, John, how are you doing today? He may say, my dog died. It may be the same emotion level. Somebody who's a low steady has high emotion. High emotion swings. A lot of highs, a lot of lows. We need to understand this about ourselves. Understand this about ourselves. We can also watch on characteristic traits of our prospects and start to understand them and descriptor words and help them buy their way. The compliant, the high emotion factor is high fear, low. They're high fear based. They're low risk takers. You understand that, and we'll start breaking that down in the sales process here in a little bit. High fear, low risk. Well, if you know that someone is a high fear based, low risk taker in the sales process, if you knew that about them and started to adjust your approach to them to reduce the risk, do you think you might have a greater likelihood to sell them and them buy their way? Well, the answer to that is yes, and we'll help you to do that. The low compliant is high risk, low fear. So this person is a high fear based, somebody who scored low would be more of a risk taker. Now, I've messed with this page. Hopefully you've written a lot better, and so it makes sense to you. It's important to understand this about you. So this page is about you and helping you understand yourself. But now, more importantly, what we're looking to do here is help you understand the emotion factor. So now you can start asking other people. By the way, you start looking at these descriptors, we can start to understand where someone might be. So if somebody's a strong, aggressive, verbal person, they're most likely a dominant or influencer. If they're more reserved and quiet, they're probably the right side here, steady or compliant. If they're more detail-oriented and diplomatic, systematic, they're probably more of a compliant, so we'll not approach them or communicate that way. If they're patient, they're probably a steady. If they're impatient, they're probably low steady. So you can be watching for those. Somebody's very optimistic, they're persuasive, convincing, enthusiastic. That's a high influencer. You can spot them a mile away. Somebody is kind of Eeyore or a little more skeptical on everything. They may lean more towards a low influencer. The dominant, competitive person that's very ambitious. Those are pretty to spot. The dominance. Somebody undemanding, unsure, cautious, they're probably a low dominant. So kind of looking in these mid-range characteristics, give a nice look into them to see, is this person high or low in that behavior? So if you can kind of look at some of these descriptors and kind of memorize them, that can go a long way to help you in blending. All right, I've done enough damage on that page. I'm going to stop right now, and let's move on. That is very important for you to understand your actual behavior. I want to have a couple of pages. By the way, before let me jump over on the assessment here for just a moment. I'm going to transfer over. When you start to look at these next pages here, it's going to be important because some of you are adapting a little bit in the work environment. So I want to cover that for just a moment so you understand this better. Start right after the descriptor page, usually page 11 or 12. What we just briefed is natural behavior on the descriptor page. Looks just like this. We just all over that, right? So here you are. This is who you are naturally outside of work. I like to say how God wired you. Now, it's an adapted behavior, and I'll explain on these graphs, lower part of your page, how you may be adapting. I'm going to annotate here again, so bear with me. The natural is who you are, just like we graphed on the descriptor page, outside of work. Adapting is how you're adjusting in the work environment. So this problems and challenges is the D factor. Okay? P contacts is the I factor. So when you read through this, you can see, wonder why my score is a little different. Now this person is very comfortable with who they are. Okay? Let's go to the next page on consistency. Pace and consistency. The pace and consistency is the S factor. Let me get that in here. Hold on a moment. Let me grab that pen. This is the S factor. Procedures constraint is the C factor. So help you as you read through this. Okay? And if you have questions on your we'll get to your graph page in a minute and what this means down below. We can talk about that, and I'll help you to maybe understand further what's going on in the work environment. Why are you adjusting or shifting? Go to the next pages, which is keys to motivating and managing. I'll get to the PowerPoint here in just a minute. What you do with these pages, whether you're being managed or you manage others. If you manage others, you want to make sure people under you have this assessment so you can have them identify the top 1, 2, or 3 best ways for you to manage them and have them give you feedback. If you're being managed, I want you to identify your top 1, 2, or 3 best ways for you for your manager to motivate you, and on the next page to manage you. We tend to motivate, manage, sell, communicate, train to people the way we want to be. Everyone is different. This is very powerful to help you with that. We also want to make sure that you allow for areas of improvement. Give feedback to the person managing, or if you're being managed, you mark a few areas that you need improvement and let them speak into you. And let's take the critique positively. This made only, or this is the result for this should only be positive gains in your business. Let's say we're able to be good about ourselves in this way. Let's move on our PowerPoint. But before I do, on the keys to motivating and managing, it's about developing you as a manager. This is also about developing you as a staff person, so we don't have situations like this picture is bringing up. This is what happens. We're doing it the wrong way. Let's get on the right page. Motivate, manage correctly, and allow your manager to motivate and manage you correctly. This is a win-win for everyone. Let's go on, and we're getting close to getting into some behavior selling here. Excuse me. In-graph should be page 20 to 22 for most of you to understand this. It's very simple. The left side is the adapted style. This is who you are outside of work. The right side, natural, is natural is outside of work. It is at work. So I'll mark this here. I'm going to mark at work. Right? So when you look at this graph was on the natural style was on the descriptor page 10 for you and is now in a graph format. If I'm interpreting this graph, I would say the person is very comfortable with her in the work environment. The reason is the graph is very similar. Their score is exactly the same as far as high and low. If you look at the bottom, you have a percentage from 0 to 100, and you have scores, 88, 30, 23, 72, or whatever your numbers are. That's your scoring out of 100 to help you understand that better. You can get specific and answer specific questions you may have regarding your assessment at the end. Again, I have everyone's graph. Let's continue here. I want to get to the wheel. I want to explain the wheel a little more. To get into behavior selling, spend some good time there. We'll open up the phones for conversation. With the insight wheel, last page of your assessment. It's important to understand how to read this. Everyone has a place on the wheel. Usually what happens is we have disconnects communication because somebody is the opposite of us. Now, the wheel here, the circle is your natural behavior. The star is your adapted. I think we're going to get to understand that now. The reason why this is in the same box is because on that page before, the person scored the same way. Speaking will help companies hire the right behavior based on the job description. We tend to put square pegs in round holes. We want to put round pegs in round holes. Now, it doesn't mean that if your behavior is the opposite of your job, you can't be successful in it. It just means you have to expend additional energy that is not normal for you to be proficient in your behavior. So, somebody who scores on the outside of the wheel tends to be less flexible but easier to read. So, again, in the outer rung, say in these areas here or on the other side, these top two areas, these people are less flexible, but they're easier to read. And the reason they're easier to read is because they're either very high or very low, very strong in one or two behaviors, and it's pretty easy to identify. Who score in the middle of the wheel are more flexible, but they're harder to read. The reason they're harder to read, and that might, we'll say, including people out into this here, are because they score 3 over the energy line. Some of you may score 3 over the energy line, and you don't score high over the energy line. Good news for you is you're flexible. You can adapt to just about any behavior fairly easy once you learn how to embrace this and study it. Others will have a harder time reading who you are. They'll see little bits of several behaviors. Anyone can blend to any behavior. You just have to learn to understand that, and that's where we're going to go next. Generally speaking, top performers, I'm going to erase and start over here. If I can do, I'll stop annotating, and that'll take it off, and I'll come back in. But on the right side here, top performers generally in a 12, 13, 14 area, and support staff are generally on the left side. Let me bring that back up again. So left coordinator generally are support staff. Right side are generally top performing individuals. I want some time now and get into behavior style blending. Before I do that, let's jump on the chats real quick. I want to make sure that you have a better understanding of who you are now before we move into blending ourselves to others. So just jump on the chats real quickly. Do you have a better understanding of who you are behaviorally? That now we can, and do you have a better understanding of this assessment so that we start moving into understanding others? So just pop in there real quick and just give me a thumbs up on there that you do, yes indeed, you understand yourself better. You are a rock star. You're absolutely right. Better, that's good. glad to see that, Chris, because you do score 3 over the energy line, right? And this is going to just have to sink in, so I'm glad that you get that. So if any of your challenge with that, let me know that too. Let me just cover on adapted versus natural one more time. I've been asked to do that. Let me just, I'm going to freeze and go back onto a disc just real quickly so we can cut just to make we're all getting this. I'm going to go back here to the bottom page here, and I'll bring this back up. Natural is who you are outside of work. Adapted is who you are in the work environment. So I'm going to bring this back up again. Now is that descriptor page that you wrote all over on page 10. Adapted is how you're adjusting in the work environment. So let's bring back up, Don, if you still have more questions afterwards, and thanks for the feedback on there. So what I have in front of you now is your selling tips note page. Okay, so your selling tip note page, we'll start completing that out. Let's talk about blending style. Why is it so important? Again, I mentioned before that communication breakdowns happen because of behavior. We're trying to communicate to a person the way we want to be, and our behavior is totally different. We're trying to sell to somebody, and our behavior, the way we want to be sold, and our behavior is totally different. And again, it's not about us, it's about them. So we want to take some time now to digest this. On your DISC assessment page, I need you to scroll back now. We're going to be moving back on this. Go back to probably page 7 for most of you, and it will say selling tips. I'm going to bring this back up on the screen. Page 8. Have page up. Sit on it. And I'm also going to ask that you bring up the selling tips note page that's blank. This grid is exactly the same as the page on your selling tips note page that you're going to be filling in. I'm going to start talking in these areas for you to fill in these blanks. So when we're selling, and look at the upper left corner on the DISC assessment page, we see the description there. What we're referring to is a compliant. So compliant is a introvert, task-oriented individual. Okay, and that introvert-oriented individual has certain characteristics about them. So let's go over that right now. Then to prefer projects over people. And from a profession standpoint, to be PAs and engineers. They'll tend to be chemists, lab technicians. I think you get the point. They're very black and white, by the book, lots of detail. In other words, they have a high fear, risk tolerance. Fear, low risk tolerance. They tend to buy warranties. Fill in the blanks. They buy warranties. Think about that. Let's accentuate the warranty process for the guarantees they have. Reduce the risk. These people need a chance to read or review the fine print. So when it says reduce the risk, give them a chance to review the fine print. These are the people that read agreements front and back. Let's give them that opportunity. Okay? So we're going to help them buy their way. By the way, this is the most challenging person for most people to sell to. Now, some of you are you have some behavior tendencies, and you're able to blend to these folks. But for most of us, the C is the hardest person to sell to. I want to share some examples on how to sell to them. By the way, some other things you need to put in place. They are perfectionists. Okay? They prefer one project at a time. They want to take it all the way through to completion and get it right the first time. If you're an influencer, they're going to think you are flaky. If you're an influencer, you will think C's are boring. This is what happens. Let's keep something in mind. If they need the fine print, if they need a lot of detail and they're kind of wary, we'll come in much slower. We'll come in when we see their behavior, we'll come in at a slower pace. When we're talking about helping them buy their way, we'll give options at the end. I'm teaching core selling next. I'm going to assume that we've put our core selling process in place. When we get to the end of the sale with my compliant, instead of asking them directly for the sale, even if you've done everything else correctly to that point, a barrier is coming up. What you need to do to disarm them is to take that barrier down. How you take that barrier down is you let them know and validate that they need some time to process and review the fine print. Hey, John, I want to reduce the risk for you. Speak slowly, by the way. I'll be non-emotional. I'm going to be aloof. And my guess is you probably need some time to review the fine print. Is that correct? If you have a contractual arrangement in your selling process, send the blank agreement before your presentation. So ask them to read the fine print before the presentation, so that's not an issue to delay the sale at the end. We're asking them to validate that they need some time to review the fine print. They'll say yes. Why? Because they're compliance once you've identified their behavior. So we'll say, John, let me suggest this. We can do one of two things. We can take 15 minutes and check my voicemail, or we can come back tomorrow. Either way is okay. Which do you prefer? I'll tell you one of two things. If you've done your job correctly to this point, you probably have a 50% likelihood that they will say 15 minutes is fine. If they say 15 minutes and you've done your job correctly, you just earned this. Remember, everything else has been completed. You've completed your presentation at this time. If they come back tomorrow, no problem. Come back tomorrow. Set a time. Make sure no one else has come behind you. By the way, for everyone on this call, you should be the last person that is being presented to your prospects. Always make sure you're last. But if somebody's coming back, make sure no one's behind you. Cancel the call, and then say, John, there is one other thing we can do. Put tomorrow's date down on the agreement. I can get everything started. You process through the evening. If this isn't comfortable for you, let me know and we can stop the process. But what this would do is allow us to keep our evening free tomorrow, and I could get started if everything's okay, assuming everything's all right. And reaffirm that you can still come back tomorrow. Probably half of the remaining group will move forward with you at that point if you've done your steps correctly. What that does is gives you potential 75% likelihood of closing a client if you've done all of your other steps correctly. At best, you may have a 25% because they're a very hard and difficult sell. Okay, let's take a look. So you want to be focusing on the next one with the upper right. These are dominants. Dominants, okay, are extrovert, task-oriented individuals. I'll bring up a completed selling tips note page so you can take a look at that. Dominants prefer to manage people. Here's the professions: entrepreneurs, developers, builders, managers. People are bottom line results oriented. They're to get them done, folks. You need to understand that about them. Your approach with them will be completely different than the compliant. The compliant, we need to work slow. We need to come in slow when we hear their pace and tonality over the phone. The dominant will sound completely different. Their tonality will be much higher. Hi, this is Rich. Hi, I know you're busy. I'll get right to the point. Be brief, specific, and to the point. If you do that, you'll build rapport with them. Okay. They want an effective presentation. You need support. So there's some similarity with the C, but things that will tension are being irrelevant and so forth. They have a fear, and this is going back to your selling tips note page. They have a fear of being taken advantage of. What I mean by that is a dominant is a very busy individual getting things done, and they don't like to shop. And so they also, though, don't want to be taken advantage of. So if you can convince them and show them that you will take really good care of them, you will have very quick sales, okay, with them. I says, don't let them run you over. A dominant tends to be a manipulator. Now, I'm saying this because I'm a high dominant as well, so don't be offended. We know, and you know very well, that you have an agenda, you want to get things done, and if you can roll over a person, you won't respect them. You'll get what you want, but you won't be in a respectful relationship. If you have sales, it's very important that you have the respect of your prospects. If you're low D or very high and you're challenged with this behavior, what you need to understand is if they're coming on very strong and demanding to you, you just go nose to nose with them. Give yourself permission to back at them. And what I mean by that is if they're bringing unreasonable demands to you, you can say, John, stop. I can't do that. We can do this, this, and this. Now, can you and I do business together? Get one or two reactions from the high D. The D will either say, he'll either elevate and say my way or the highway, and you need to send him down the highway because no one needs a toxic, demanding, dominant, ruining their life. Most likely what will happen, though, is the D will drop and realize they have a peer, and they'll say, yes, that's fine, I understand. The person who stands to them will get their respect. So don't let them run you over. But I want you to put a side note to that sheet. Let them win. And for the dominant is the game. Everything is a race. It's a competition. Let them win. I'll show you how you ultimately win. You should have a couple of options for them. They're always about the bottom line. So what you want to do is make sure that you get a couple of options. And let's say they're going towards option B. You want them to have option A. They're going to option B. Pretty soon you say, John, you know what? You win. Let's go ahead with option A. Let's just agree that maybe in 30, 60, 90 days we'll review and see if some upgrades or changes should be made. Do we have a deal? We have a deal. They think they won. However, you really won. That's key. Them win. Close them hard. If you come in, like I explained with the compliant about making sure that we're giving today or tomorrow, they are quick decision makers and they're bottom line results oriented. They won't respect you if you take that approach. If you have a sale and they come back and say, I need to think about it. By the way, if a client ever tells you that, that means you haven't done your job. We'll talk about that in course selling. But they say, I need to think about it. Come right back to them and say, John, what is it you need to think about? Be a matter of fact. John, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being high, what's your hesitation or fear on moving forward? Or where's your readiness on moving forward? And what's the 2 that's holding you back? There's different ways to approach that. Just make sure that you're covering them that way. I'm going to come back to add a party here in just a moment on the selling tips page, so just bear with me on that. I'll come back to that. The left here are steadies, okay? You can see the word in these steadies. You see the word compliant for the C, the whole strong-willed, decisive, that's the dominant. The steady, if you look on your selling tips note page, is an introvert relationship-oriented individual. They want to make it safe. Okay? Professional-wise, they tend to be teachers, government employees, Postal Forest Service. I think you get the gist. Some of you in the D.C. area, there's government employees all around you. Probably too many. Okay? People are very nice, relationship-oriented, but they're a little quiet. The C is a little aloof. By the way, with that compliant, don't give them a big hug. Some of you are huggers on the phone. Don't hug them. Okay? The C is more warm, but they're introverted. A team player. They like change. They need to come in very soft and non-threatening. There's my squiggly line. You guys try this sometime. If you don't know how these lines are going, I'll turn this over and let you try it. This is a hard thing to do. All right. Don't come in domineering or demanding. Give a chance to think it over and close them soft. These people need to think it over. They really do. Give that chance. They want to jump on team. If you're blending to them along the way and coming in soft and non-threatening, you just have to make sure that you are coming in non-threatening. Don't be domineering or demanding. Don't drive the conversation. Make it very comfortable for them. It's like the compliant. Give them the either-or option, the 15 minutes or tomorrow, but base it on thinking it over. If you come back tomorrow, if there was another appointment set behind you, offer to cancel the appointment. They are non-confrontational. Take that away from them. I'm sure all of you would love to cancel an appointment on prospect's behalf to your competitor. When selling to a person who's magnetic, friendly, demonstrative, enthusiastic, these are influencers. Remember, we talked about influencers being extrovert, relationship-oriented people. So on your Selling Tips note page, extrovert, relationship-oriented, these people only want to have fun. So when we start the conversation, remember the D, I said, I heard energy, and I said, John, I know you're busy, I'll get right to the point. With the I, it's just the opposite. A lot of people, you're a high I and you're a high I, you could have a conversation for the first time with them, go into it for 5 minutes, and neither of you know who the person is. But you don't care because you're extrovert relationship oriented. The only friends eyes don't have are people they haven't met yet. So let's make sure that we are embracing the fun and the relationship piece before we get down to business. Okay. Back to your notes. Have the attention span of a flashbulb. Now, professors, if you are saying, "Oh, that's not me," of course it's you. Like the fish swimming and the little lures all up there, and we're biting and jumping on all the lures. That's the I. Professionals, sales professionals, activity directors, fundraisers. All people tend to be high influencers. I have no loyalty. Close them hard. On your notes, fill that out. I'm going to bring that note page up here in just a moment. Okay? For the I, it's all about the experience. They're not going to read the agreement. We're not bringing that up. It's about the bottom line. It's about how you two are going to interact and the relationship that's going to develop as a result of the sale. Don't button up the I. You will lose the sale. I know all of you have been stuck by an I at one time or another. You thought everything was good, everything's great. You did the sale. Everybody's high-fiving each other, and the prospect said, "Let's do this tomorrow at 6:30." You said, "Okay." 6:30 show. He or she didn't show. 7 you call, and they say you never guess what happened. You get a big lump in your throat because they bought from somebody else. They'll do that. They'll jump ship at a heartbeat. Close them hard. Keep that in mind. I'm going to pause, and then I'm going to switch, and I'm going to bring up the page that will give you the notes here, so you can take a look at what should be filled out here, and I'll talk about at a party. Okay, so we'll bring this back up. You should see it here. and you can digest, make sure you got everyone in. And I want to talk about at a party. So the D is the okay. You see the D at the party. If you're in a group or any social gathering and you hear laughter or over talking others, big noise, that's the D. You can spot them a mile away. Okay. The I is the life of the party. They have the lampshade on their head, dangling on the table. Okay. They're talking to everyone, really saying nothing. It's all about fun. It's about the experience. They're keeping everyone laughing and having a good time. The steady is in the corner with one other person. Intimate conversation. Okay. What I mean by that is they're relationship oriented, but they're not the life of the party. So they'll be chaos all around. They'll be in a corner having this deep conversation with somebody, and a compliant won't be there. Why? Because they're introvert, task-oriented. Or if they are, they'll come in last. They'll be nervous. The host will try to get them to take the load off. They'll say, no, I just got too much to do. I can't stay long. They'll make a token appearance. As soon as the host turns their back, they're out the door. That's the compliant. Feeling in extremes there. Some people are compliant and they'll go to parties, but their internal driven wiring is they would rather not be there. Take a look at the, make sure you've got everything entered the way you want it, and come back in on the show and back in here and finish up, and then I'm going to open our phones, and I want to, Doug, I have your assessments here. I want to talk about, or have you talk about scenarios. That's going to be big next time. We'll be doing some role playing, but I want you to be ready for that as well. So let's talk about some plans here before we get into next week and so forth. We're wrapping up here. It's very simple. Depending on where you're at, I'd like you to, if you haven't finished the don'ts on communication, identify those top 3 don'ts. If you're managing others and you have their assessment, have them share with you your communication, their communication do's and don'ts. You share theirs and their best ways for you to motivate and manage them. Being managed, show them the communication do's and don'ts and the best ways for them to manage and motivate you. You might also go through your ideal environment and value to the organization page. Anything else? Very simple. I want you to start watching and studying the people you're doing business with, and start identifying their behavior and the best way to blend, help them by their way. It's important that we put these into, and I have a number of clients who are on the call that just love to be reinforced by this information. Let's review what we learned. And let's make sure we've got a good read on all this stuff, and then we're going to open up the phones here in about 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes. We're just cleaning up here. Reviewing what we learned. Remember, we spent a lot of time here helping you understand you. Here's coming up next week. We're going to be doing more of the same, but you'll begin deeper about knowing yourself as a salesperson, your strengths and development needs specifically, in that you don't want to miss next week. This is a refresher for some of you. Next week will be new for just about everyone on this call. Hopefully you have a better understanding of the wheel and the graph, motivation, and we started on blending your style. We'll go deeper at next week. This is a total setup for next week's class. We talked about some action plans. Again, get in specific on your communication do's and don'ts and so forth, and let's share that appropriately. Or share that with a partner. If you're managed, share that with a partner as well. Let's talk about next week. Again, we're coming into understanding you. Behavior style matching, this is really important because you're going to understand your best and your worst behavior match. We'll get to the products that your prospects select. Yes, based on behavior, they make decisions, which we talked about today, a certain way. They also choose products. So now if you understand that, as well as your behavior, theirs, and improved communication, we're going to new levels and planes that we never before increase as a result. We'll talk about reducing the cycle and dimensions of normal behavior, as well as some playing and some polling to see if you're understanding the behavior. You don't want to miss time. This is already paid for. This is part of the whole package, so just come back next week and we'll dig into that. I'll have additional attachments to send. Make sure you bring your DISC assessment. Make sure you bring your selling tips note page. Need us to send the completed one, we can do that. No problem. Our class is coming up next week. Same time. We start the same time, which is right at 12 o'clock Pacific and all the way to 3 o'clock Eastern. To have our number here if you have any questions. So at this point, I'm going to exit out of here. I'm going to on the phones, and I'm coming back here. So just bear with me. I'm going to unmute phones here. So hold, we're unmuted, and I think you can come back in now. So we have a live chat here. So I'm going to open up any questions regarding what we discussed. Don, can you hear me? Can you unmute yourself? Did I answer your question regarding adapted versus natural? Go ahead and yourself. I think everybody should hopefully be unmuted here. Hopefully that worked. Give me a shout out. David, hear me? I hear fine. David, going through this a second time. David, any other odds or just additional confirmation from what we talked about?
Well, this is a great refresher for it, and it was easy because we just went over last week. But it's interesting. I've been trying to apply it to different people. I'm having a fun time trying to guess who all my coworkers are as well. So,
the point on that, David, is get them all to take it. So we make that one happen, right?
Yeah.
That spread like wildfire, especially as they start seeing some of the results you're seeing on that. Excellent. Next week, everyone, you want to attend, because clients, I don't get into this on our session 1, so it'll all be new stuff, but we have to pick up from this base point. Anyone else? Questions, comments? Don?
I got you on the phone. Can you hear me now?
I hear you fine. Yep.
I wasn't sure exactly what makes me different at work than at not at work, as far as that is.
Well, nothing. Go to your thing here, Don.
I don't know why or how exactly I would be different.
Okay. Look at it from your report here. You have if you go to your page 20, and it says 4/3/11, right? Is that the date?
Right.
Here's what's different. Here's what's different on your report, and I think it's a good adjust. If you look on your right side, you show as an influencer steady. And left side, you show as an influencer with a little bit of dominance. So your influencer is your primary behavior. When you took this, what you're feeling at the time is the need to be a little more decisive, competitive, versus outside of work where you're maybe a little more hesitant or unsure, and you're a little more patient at work. This was showing that you're less patient at work, which I think is appropriate. You're not really low on your S in the work environment. On the adapted, you're a 40. You're at a 53. I think you could even stand to let that D come up even a little stronger. Some of the stuff we're talking about really owning it on your waterfront and really getting that's bringing that D and that competitiveness for the work environment. Naturally, you're more of kind of people really like you. It's easy for you to build rapport, but having that low D in the work environment is, or if you don't have that D up in the work environment, you can miss sales. So I think you're appropriately elevating up. wheel, Don.
Everybody has two different sides. I mean, I never really thought of it that way.
Everyone has a natural and adapted. Some people have the same score, basically. They're not adapting much in the work environment. They're very comfortable with who they are.
Okay.
So you're moving in the right direction. I would even, like you can go to your, we didn't even get into behavior hierarchy. If you go to your page 18, bring more competitiveness, urgency. Bring in, I mean, you're starting to do that. We'll start bringing that D up a little higher for your work environment.
Okay.
And again, once we understand that your primary is I mean, you are an influencer, which is a real key to your success. Our greatest strength can be our greatest detriment.
So
yeah.
Mike,
do you have a question?
Evan, I think it just up after hearing Don's question, but from hearing then the natural versus the natural versus adapted. So ultimately, I mean, it's if when I come to work, I come to work, and so that's why.
Yep.
I get a little more some versus others rather than when I go home and I can relax and just let it all go. Okay.
That's correct. Let's see the work environment is demanding more or different than the home environment, but you score pretty close to the same. Now your S is a little lower, not much, David. Your I, okay, so what's adapted on this is your I is a little higher and your S is a little lower, which is appropriate. Okay, your D can be higher. I think with your, just putting all stuff in place, I think your D. I can sense with you, David, that as you're coming and you understand this, you can get really laser focused when you need to, and you can bring whatever you need to bring. That's what my hunch is, or what I'm sensing.
Mm-hmm.
See,
well, huh? No, you're going to find out that's true.
Excellent. Anyone else? David, I see you're on the call. Questions or comments? I know this is your second time going through. Next time is going to be even deeper. Is there anything else on that?
Yeah. It just it seems to as we've discussed, I'm on the steady and compliant, which doesn't really blend itself to being a per se quote unquote top agent.
You are. Right? Yeah.
I'm just wondering how much change do I need to focus on some of these other things I'm trying to bring?
I don't think I think all you do, David, you are who you are, and you don't see a need to change, right? You notice that on your adapted. You're very successful in sales. The stuff we're working on, I will bring that urgency as needed. You're very committed as well, right?
Yeah.
And I think what's most important is situationally blending with your prospects in that. Now, just like I said to Don, and Don's very successful as well. He has more D than you. There are times when we have to take a look at that whole aspect of your urgency. Are you bringing enough urgency in? And I may remind you of that at certain times. So,
right.
But I think in general, we want to blend into the other folks, make sure that we're executing appropriately as we should, and the rest will go there. But I think that in general, the thing is to know that normally or naturally, you're not bringing a lot of D in, and that can be affecting business. Same with Don, same with David, actually. Everyone in that similar situation from the low D side.
Rich, is there a chart where you're going to go over, all right, your personality, my personality is this way, I should be working with those kinds of people, and really know this with people a little bit?
Yeah, right. Okay, so next week we're going to bring out behavior descriptors. We're going to answer that further, okay, than we did today, and swing back with me and see if I didn't answer any of those questions for me to connect the dots. Any of this stuff we can only bring so much right forward into the table. But yeah, Don, we'll get into that deeper next week. Show up, man. Come up for that.
adaptive style, might the buyers then also I'm working with?
Say, I'm sorry?
If I'm adaptive style at work, might the buyer be showing me a different side than what they really are?
Well, yes, right. But work is different than personal bias stress. It would be possible. Let's just say this. Say you're dealing with an influencer dominant. So you're seeing a lot of influencer at first, right? You guys are connecting. You're talking about the Buccaneers or whatever, right? And all of a sudden, though, now we're coming into choosing the home, and all of a sudden the raging D comes out from that negotiating side. And we'll see both, and in certain situations that one may come and take over. So I think the behavior style, because somebody can be more than one. All of you there that are live on the call right now are over the energy line too, right? So I'm talking with you, David, and we got some I one, and all of a sudden some S comes in when it's coming to decision time. David, same thing. I might be sensing of S or just relationship piece, but now all of a sudden the detail needs are coming up. We have to be ready for that. That's why it's so important that we get ourselves down first, and then really being available to working with the others. So, Don, I think we'll get deeper on that for you. Do you have another question, Don? David, I think we have a little bit of a delay. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I really appreciated the selling tips again. That's a very helpful graph to look at and to try to learn more when you're dealing with clients. Because I can see how that can make you thousands of dollars every year if you're really cued in on how people are wired.
Absolutely. Well, just for example, I mean, all of you on the we're talking to within your book of business, if all we did was just master this side, it would definitely bring you a half dozen deals. I mean, just conservatively, okay? Because we're missing sales all the time. I have that news to you. What we're going to try to do, though, is we're going to try to stop that. And we're going to stop that is by making sure we're having the behavioral focus, make sure that we're really dialed in on our process, and that getting in front of more people as well, so that we're getting in front of more people and converting them, but we're using all angles of that. And this is very, very important. And building teams, right? As we're extending our print and so forth, we need to bring the right people in to help us in on that. So, any questions?
Good.
Real good, Rich. Thank you.
Hey, see you all on the call, Don. See you next week, okay, man?
All right.
Anybody else? There's a few other folks that are on that we didn't participate in. Take care. We'll talk next week. Bye-bye.